Hey, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is, my favorite day of the week. Amen, somebody. Listen, it is Warrior Wisdom Wednesday. I can't wait to kick off this conversation with you. I have been praying about how this conversation is going to go, what God is going to reveal, how God is going to help you through this. So I cannot wait to actually get into it. This is a little bit more. So if you are familiar with me, you know that I'm very vulnerable and very transparent. But before I do that, I want to do an official welcome to Warrior Wisdom Wednesday and just tell you a little bit about what it's about, right? So this is your midweek recharge and soul care sanctuary, an online teaching series that takes a deep dive into topics of soul care, emotional wellness, and generational health. Each session is filled with powerful teachings, practical tools, and uplifting insights that will help you heal, grow, and transform from the inside out. I feel like today is going to be a little bit of a tongue twister. So, just forgive me if that happens. I will try to toggle between the comments. If you have a question, definitely pop it in the chat and I will be sure to do my best to answer it. My goal is not to be before you long, as the church folks say, but sometimes the conversation is that good that we just have to keep it going. Amen, somebody. And so, if somebody's healing is on the other side of that, I definitely do not want to hold that up. So let me just see who I have in here. Hi, brother. Oh, I love when my family watches. It's just always a blessing to be supported by the people that you love. So being able to have my brother come in, and I mean, like, he's my real life brother, like, put you in a headlock, give you a noogie, mess up your hair, still do the dunk in the doorway, like blood brother. Hello, somebody. Okay. And it don't matter how old I get, he's still going to do it every single time. He's such a big brother. Do y'all know he told on my birthday post just a couple of weeks ago, he posted that I had turned 50. And don't you know, so many people started wishing me a happy 50th birthday. When I tell you big brother, I'll tell you big brother. Golly, golly. But anyway, so tonight I am sharing how I became a better wife even after having been divorced twice. It's going to get sticky. It's going to get sticky. And the reason why I decided to title it that and to share from this perspective is because oftentimes when women are going through, and even men, when they're going through, sticky situations, especially when you've been divorced more than once or married more than once, you start to take hits to your self-worth. You start to think that you're not enough, that you're not equipped, that, maybe marriage isn't for you, or I just wasn't a good wife. And as I was going through sort of my process in ending this marriage, because it was my decision to end the marriage, I was like, God, I don't know if I'll ever get married again. I don't actually feel like I'm a good wife. Maybe that's the reason why things aren't working. Like, I'm the common denominator in all of this. And I just remember my mentor saying to me, nobody gets to define whether or not you're a wife outside of God. And I just thought how powerful that statement was, that even I was trying to be dismissive of what God had called me to be, and that he had called me that at an early age. Like, I knew I was going to be a mom. I knew I was going to be a wife. And that was very early in my late teens that he had said that to me, and he doesn't take it away. It doesn't go away just because the opportunity to be in that role doesn't work out. And so I wanted to come on and I wanted to encourage women who, it doesn't matter if you're married, single, dating, newly divorced, long time divorced, and still desire to be a wife and be in a marriage, that you can do it. But I've learned that it just requires a certain level of work and healing. So I wanted to know, God, what is it that I need to change within me to really experience the marriage that you desire for me to have, should you bless me with the opportunity to be married again? And he said, well, let's back things up. Let's see how you got here. And so he gave me 3 things. And the first one was, I had made a series of unhealed decisions. That means I was making decisions out of my trauma That means I was making decisions out of my pain. That meant that I was making decisions out of my desperation, but I was also making decisions outside of God's will. Like some things I hadn't even sought. I wasn't even in Christ in my first marriage. Now, I've been married for a collective between the two marriages, 18 years. And so the first marriage was 10 years long. The second was 8.5. And so the first, you're talking about 10 years, not committed to Christ, not living God's way. And you're trying to make a marriage work, something that is ordained by God, right? Completely out of alignment. And so if I'm honest, one of the reasons that I got married like the first time was I was competing with 2 other baby mamas. Like, I'm just going to put this out there because I know my story is somebody else's story. I know that I'm not the only one that was making these kind of decisions. Child, what y'all not going to do. You see what I'm saying? Y'all not going to leave me out here by myself. But that was the reason I had just turned 25. We had just had a child together. I had already had my oldest son, who's now 24, but he was 4 at the time. And I was competing. I made a decision because I was competing. I made a decision because I was desperate to win, to be the one, to be the chosen one, to be the selected one. And yeah, I was selected. All right. I won. All right. And not in God's way. And the second time around, I hadn't actually done the work that I needed to do. I didn't even know that I actually needed to do work. Like doing the work wasn't a thing when we're talking about what, 2010, 2011. And I had been separated for 3 years before even meeting, my ex-husband. But I still hadn't done the work. I was angry. I was bitter. I was resentful. I was all the things. And so I made a decision to get married fresh. When I tell you fresh, I don't even think I was a full 90 days into my faith walk. Like I had literally just been baptized like 3 weeks before we even got married. Like fresh into my faith walk. So I still didn't have a clue as to what a godly wife looked like, how I was supposed to show up, that I still had things that I had to deal with from my first marriage that were going to trickle in to my next marriage for the next 5 years. That's how long it impacted it. And so God was like, yeah, you're just making unhealed decisions. The second one is that he's like, you handle my people improperly. Because you're not healed, you're reckless. Like your mouth is wicked. Like the things that come out of your mouth, how do you expect me to reconcile that with being a godly wife? Sometimes God checks you and you're just kind of like, wow, you didn't have to do me like that. Like you could have pulled me to the side, you know what I'm saying, in my prayer time and just talk to me softly and quietly. But sometimes he'll just get it right to the point and let you know what it is what it is, right? And so the third thing was a compromised image and likeness. So if we are created in his image and in his likeness, it goes back to the improper handling of other people, as well as being unhealed. That is not the likeness nor the image of Christ. So how could I bear that to my husband? How could I bear that in my marriage? How could I be an image bearer if I don't even know what that looks like? And it's already compromised because of the fact that I haven't even done my own work. So here are a couple of things. I told you that there was 8, and I gave you 2 and a Facebook post, and I'm still going to go over them tonight. I promise you. And again, if anything comes up and you have a question and you're like, but what if, well, can I drop those questions in the chat? And I'll be sure to check the comments and make sure that I do my best to answer your question. And I thank y'all so much for being here with me tonight. It really does mean a lot to me. Right. So let's get into it. The first thing that he showed me, right, was respect is a heart posture. And this actually came from one of my coaches / mentors. And when she hit me with this, she said it in one of the lives that she was doing. She was like, y'all think respect is this and that, but it's really a heart posture. And I was like, whoa. Pause. Let me go watch the replay, because that just hit my spirit in a way that I didn't anticipate. Like, what do you mean respect is a heart posture? It's a heart issue. So I'm like, What is going on? So here's how it was broken down as I continued to study it more. Respect isn't just about how we treat each other, it's a heart posture, right? You have to deal with your mother and father wounds, your past issues with men, and how you see God. Here's how it plays out. So, my dad, when I broke it down in therapy and with working with my mentor, I came to the realization that I never felt safe with my dad. I felt like he had never protected me because of certain things that were happening either in my life or with our family unit, or just things that I had to go through or experience as a result of him not being as present. Now, he lived with us, but he wasn't present all the time. And I just recognized that, wow, I never felt safe. I never felt like my dad protected me. Right. And then I know my brother's watching. And so when my brother left and he went into the military, I would only see him like, every so often because of duty stations, and, he would be overseas and things like that for the next 24 years. I was 11 when he left. So I have the two main men in my life who are not there. And now I'm feeling like, well, who's supposed to protect me? There's no man that's really going to protect me. So when certain things started to happen, sexual abuse and all these things, I started to look at, well, where are the men that are supposed to protect me? And I subconsciously started to blame them. Like, you were supposed to protect me. Now, what does that do? When you get into the romantic relationships, you start to project that. And because you had this subconscious dealing in the background of your mind that these men don't protect you, you're now taking the men don't protect me mindset into your marriage. Now you're starting to disrespect your husband because you already believe something that's not even related to him, that he's going to show up in the same way. And so that disrespect looks like, I'm just going to do me. I'm super independent. Like, I got this, I don't really need a man. I'm glad that you're here. It's just like they're a byproduct of your, like, they just happen to be a part of your life. And God was like, no, no, no. Like, let's fix that. And as a matter of fact, why don't you come to me about the problems that you're having with me? Why don't you come to me and tell me exactly how you feel about me as a result? And I'm thinking, like, God, we cool. Like, I thought we were, I thought we would, not still realizing, like, God knows my heart. He knows what's in there. He knows the things that are in there before I can even acknowledge some of the things that come out. And so he's like, yeah, no, you need to deal with me. You need to tell me how you were upset with me, how you ended up in certain relationships and you thought it was my fault. Like, you need to tell me that. I know it, but you need to tell me that. And so this starts to build that heart posture of how you see the opposite sex, simply because of your dealings with men, your dealings with past relationships, how you actually see God. Do you believe he's a good father? Do you believe he's a protector? Do you believe he's a provider? Because if you don't, when you go into these relationships, you're going to treat that man who's here physically present with you the same exact way. It may not be as harsh as it was for me, but it's going to seep out and he's going to feel it before he hears it. Like, your body language, your tone, the way that you talk to them, it's all going to matter. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The other thing that happened that I thought, I was like, dang, that impacts it too. So there's this mothering spirit that I had and operated in for a long time. I think this was one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had in therapy, was understanding that I was operating in a mothering spirit. And God said it to me this way. He said, every time you operate in a mothering spirit in a romantic relationship, you're only going to attract broken sons. I said, well, you don't have to punch me in the face every time you talk to me. Like, you don't have to do it like that. And you know what I'm saying? I'm already listening. You don't have to do me like that. And what that looked like was I was doing things beyond the capacity of a wife. And I started to mother inside of those relationships. And so there's a fine line, and then there's a clear difference of what that looks like. And if you're not healed, if you're not doing this work of like dealing with, where does that come from? How did I even get to a place of identifying the fact that I was operating in a mothering spirit? How did it even play out in my marriage? And then what did you do about it? What did you do about it? And so what happened was, my mom was very independent. Like, she was a hard worker. She had a great work ethic. She really did a lot to put her past behind her and try to focus on her children. And for me and my brother, that looked totally different. But for me, she was a helicopter mom. So I was smothered. I was coddled. I was loved, but it was, I don't want to say an obsessive kind of love, but it was love beyond mothering, if that makes sense. And so it was a lot of overprotection and, worrying and anxiousness. And this was all from her childhood. And so she was overcompensating for what she didn't get in her childhood with what she did with me. I'm going to tell you how that played out. I was 35 when I finally started to live as an adult. That's how it plays out. And so now everything that my mother was to me, this supporter, this encourager, all these things, you talk about leave and cleave. That is extremely hard when you're operating in this mother-daughter dynamic. What that does is it creates a level of codependency in your marriage. So now I'm worrying all the time. Now I'm anxious. Now I want to check your phone. Now I want to do it. And I'm insecure. And what do I hear? You don't respect me. You don't trust me. This is just the first one, y'all. Golly, this is just the first one. Exactly. And that masculine energy. I promise you, feminine authority is beautiful. It's so beautiful. Like, it's not even that whole soft life vibe. It's being able to operate in the level of femininity that God has given me without losing my authority, without losing my place, without losing my position, without losing my power. I don't need to be masculine. I don't need to be all aggressive and here's what we're going to do. And that was me. Like, go back and watch any of the lives. You hear from my children. You hear from my ex-husband. I was not the nicest. And this is how it impacted my marriage. And so now that I understand that respect is from the heart, I had to heal those things that I believed about men. I had to deal with the things that were impacting how I showed up as a wife in a relationship, in a marriage, so that going forward, whoever God would have for me, if he does, I know now for a fact that because I've done the work to dig all that stuff out, how I show up respectfully to my husband is going to be completely different. And so I'm just saying, for you, do that work. Look at the mother wounds. Look at how your relationship dynamics were with your mom. Look at those dynamics between you and your dad and you and God. Because how you see them, how you experience them, this is one of the reasons why dating people, like dating coaches and experts and gurus, will tell you, look at how he treats his mother. Look at how he treats other women. It's only going to reflect. It's going to come right to you. It's not going to change just because you walked in his life. He's learned this. And it's going to be the same for you as well, right? So the next one is submission. Now, I know this is a curse word for most of us women. Golly. And what I'm understanding about it now is so different. It's so different than what is stereotypically taught, what culture teaches, right? And so when you look up the word submit, now y'all know me, I love me a good dictionary, okay? When y'all look up the word submit, it means to yield. And the best way I like to describe that is, think about you driving on a highway and you're coming on to the incoming lane. And so you're coming, the cars are moving, and here you come. So your husband is driving on that lane, right? He's leading, he's guiding, he's going, he's shaking, he's moving. Amen, somebody? Oh, that's how it should be. You see what I'm saying? And then here you come with your submission, and you're yielding to get into the same lane that he is in, so that y'all can be on the same page. I hope that explanation makes sense, because it freed me. And so I was like, well, God, what is that? Break that down for me even more, what that looks like. And so he said, submission is about yielding to my plan, right? And trusting him with our life. There is a difference between submitting in love and then trying to control or manipulate situations and calling it submission. I'm just going to tell him a little bit. I'm only going to tell him this much. And, those are the good parts. So that's enough to convince him to do it. That's not submission. That's disobedience. And it's disrespectful. Y'all still watching? Are we still friends? Are we cool? Okay. Right? And so let me tell you like a little story, right? Story time. Y'all know I always got a story. So there was an event that me and my ex-husband were at. And I knew I wanted to participate in this particular program. And I wasn't sure if it could happen, financially, how it was going to work, how it was going to look. And so, I was in my quiet time as, the whole presentation is going. And I'm like, God, I prayed about this. This was something that, you connected me to. You connected me to this person. And you said that this was the relationship that we were supposed to have, that we were supposed to start. But I don't know how we're going to make it work. And so I heard God say, present it to him, share what you feel about it, and leave it. And so I said, okay. So there was a break in the day. We went out for lunch. I shared my heart. I said, this is, something I'm excited about. I've been praying about it. I've been praying about it. This is what I feel about it. This is, what I hope to get from it. And, but the challenge is we are where we are. I don't know how it's going to work financially for us because it's a decent price tag. So, I'm okay, though, if it can't happen this time. But I do just want to express my excitement for it and just, put it out there. And so I didn't hold back. I acknowledged the challenge of the financial strain it might put on the family. I said exactly how I felt. He knew how I felt because he was there. He was in the room. I didn't have to go home and sell it to him. He was right there. And so as we were walking back to the venue, I heard God say he's going to pay for it. And I was like, well, I don't know. Because if you knew him, he was a stickler. He was the saver. I was the spender. And so it was, he had already left the conversation with like, I don't know. And so, I had already prepared myself for like, this may not work. This may not be the time. This may not be the season. And that's okay. When I tell you, we got back to the venue, they started back, teaching and preaching on the stage. He looked at me dead in my face and he said, I'm going to pay for it. I know this is something that is really important to you. That is what submission also looks like. Sometimes we think it's just, he's just going to make the decision. And when I tell you women, like the power and the influence that you have to guide those decisions just by being honest and submitting the information, submitting the prayer that you prayed, submitting whatever facts or truth or encouragement or motivation, submitting that to your husband. I had no idea what that looked like until after the 2 marriages. And so God put it this way, plain and simple. He said, not submitting is like wanting provision, but not putting in a request for it. I said, you know what, God, you keep smacking me in the face and I don't know how to handle it. So I'm just going to do what the word says. I'm going to turn the other cheek, even though you're not my enemy, because you're doing a lot right now. You telling me a whole lot. It's a lot. He said not submitting is like wanting the provision, but then you don't put a request in it. So you are a request for it. So you want God to do all these things for you, but you're not going to pray about it. You're not going to ask him about it. You're not going to believe him when you ask about it. You're not going to believe that he'll do it for you. What that man say in the Bible? He said, it's not my belief. It's help me with my unbelief. Oh man, listen, I don't know. I'm hot. Are y'all hot? Because I'm hot. This was okay. Maybe it's just me. I got it. I'm gonna move on. I got you. I'm gonna move on, right? So the next one is being an azer. And I'm gonna talk more about this next week. But if anybody has heard me preach and teach on being an azer, oh my God. Like, this is the reason why it's called warrior womanhood. Let me just say that. Because if you look up the definition, like the Hebrew definition, it is a mighty help, a strong helper, similar to how God is with his people. And the only other time he uses it in the Bible is when he's correlating it to being a warrior in like warlike situations. Warrior womanhood. Like what I do, like the name isn't just cute, it's biblical. It's biblical. It's really about helping women get back to what God designed you to be in the first place, right? So as a woman, we're called to be an aider, a helper. But that doesn't mean that we're enabling, and we get those two confused. I've been called out quite a few times for enabling, for not saying the things, for not speaking up, for not challenging, for not pushing. And it's not being disagreeable. It's challenging for growth. It's truth and love. It's about supporting without losing yourself. It's offering strength without overstepping boundaries. Like being a help requires a level of strength that I don't think we fully understand as women. When your man needs prayer, that intercessory prayer, honey, can change a situation. It can build him up. It can change how he sees himself. That motivation and encouragement, that affirmation, whole game changer for your marriage. All things I wish I knew when I was. But here I am looking how I'm looking. Okay? Support and enabling are two different things. Support goes up. Enabling brings down. It does none of you any justice if you keep the peace and you just keep your mouth shut. You don't say the things. Do you know how many times God told me to have the hard conversation? Say the hard things, and I promise you, you will come out better on the other side, even if it doesn't feel like it when you go through it. And I still didn't do it out of fear. Out of fear. It could have been a totally different marriage. The next one is the COO of the home, right? The Proverbs 31 woman. Listen, this, like, I shared this when I did my last 21-day fast. Shout out, because I'm doing another one starting this Saturday. But when we did that and I broke down that COO of the home, like as a wife, you are the COO. You are the chief operating officer. That means that you are looking at things from an operational perspective. Do you know how much like power? And this is why I say your feminine authority, like the things that God has given you to do just ornately and intimately as a woman, is so much more powerful than what we give credit to, than what we're capable of. It's not just the cooking of the meals and rearing the children and taking care of the house and doing all the things. Honey, she worked. Read Proverbs 31. She worked. And she wasn't like busy. She wasn't hustling. She wasn't grinding. The thing that I love so much about this passage of scripture is while it lists all the things that she does, it's no mention of like she was fatigued and she was, late. She couldn't do this because she was doing that. And you got to manage your time. You got to manage your calling. You got to manage the mandate. Like when your husband shares the vision, you have the power to disseminate that vision to make it happen. Like you get to help decide how that looks. Because as my coach would say it, and I'm always going to shout her out, Dr. Shamika Dean, as she would say it, you have a mantle and a mandate for your marriage. So it's not just his vision, it's y'all's vision. And when you just accept that, like he's going to spearhead the vision, but I can contribute. I can submit. There goes that curse word. I can submit information to help move that vision along and to help paint the big picture. Every time you submit to the vision, it's like finding the right puzzle piece at the right time to fit to help move that big picture forward. He gets the big vision, and then you can submit and yield to that. Are we good? Y'all still my friend? Okay. It's about managing your household with wisdom and grace, and then being a steward of what God entrusted you and leading with love and integrity. The reason why I'm picking these specific things or characters or qualities out is because it's where I lacked. It's where God had to deal with me on these things. When you transition from single mom, married, back to single mom, to married, what happens is, for most women, and we don't want to admit it this way, so I'll say it for you. That way you don't, you know what I'm saying? You don't gotta get in trouble. We constantly are transitioning from CEO to COO to CEO to COO. And if you're strong-willed, nobody likes a demotion. Nobody likes to be the head and then step down, and then be the head again and step down. And so what God had said to me, he said, you need to constantly be the COO. There's no transition. So even though I went from a married woman back to a single woman with children, I'm still the COO of this house. That means I still leave room for God to carry the vision until he provides a man that can help pick up that mantle, that understands the mantle and the mandate. I'm still the COO. I still handle things operationally. I know what's moving. I know who needs what, who feels this way, how to communicate with this child versus that child, when I need to tap in, when I need to tap out and let them do their thing, because I have 2 young adults who are adulting. That's COOing. But I'm also still working. I'm providing income into the household. I'm still managing the household. But I'm not positioning myself so that if I'm gifted, if I'm blessed to have a husband, that he has to try to wiggle his way into something we've already built. No, it's permeable. Back to those boundaries. It's permeable. I understand my position for this season, but I also know that when things shift, I'm going to have to submit. And now, because I know what it looks like and why I'm doing it, I don't have a problem doing it. It's not a power struggle. I'm not trying to usurp his power. I'm not trying to, my say is the last say. These are my kids, like, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming with that energy. I'm not coming with that vibe. I'm not bringing that in. And then the second thing about this Proverbs 31 woman, when you see how her husband and her children honor her, like, she brings peace. Everything that she does brings peace into the home. And so I remember being told, like, you're a great wife, you're a great mom. Like, the way that you organize the house, you make it easy for them to be kids. You make it easy for me to be a husband, because you set things up in such a way. And that's operationally knowing how your house functions from a place of love and integrity. I show up as me. Things are labeled. Things are, done correctly. Things are where they need to be. So that way, everyone else in the household has the autonomy to be themselves. They have the space and the grace to be able to do that. The next one is voice confidence. What I say matters, but how I say it matters even more. Man, I am someone who's tone sensitive. I don't know if anybody else is tone sensitive in the audience. If you are, don't leave me hanging. You can say me. Tone sensitive means I am picking up on the different fluctuations of how somebody is saying something. So I'm good. I'm good. No, really, I'm good. I'm picking up on that. So if something is said to me in a tone, I'm wondering what's behind it. Unless there's genuinely nothing else behind it. But because I'm tone sensitive, I also don't always hear my own tone. I don't hear my own frustration sometimes. I don't hear my own resentment and anger and bitterness and all the things that I was feeling in my last marriage. I don't hear them all the time. I remember being asked one time because I was sent a text and it said, I love you. And I responded, love you too. And he was like, what is that? And I was like, what? And he was like, what is that? You didn't say, I love you. And so there's something that happens in how we communicate, right? It's that undercurrent message that's being sent and that's being communicated. There's a way to go about it. There's a reason in how you say it and why you're saying it in the first place. And I'll tell you that voice confidence starts with checking your motives before you speak. This is something that God had worked on with me for years. And so I know when to say something and when not to say something. I also know how to say it. I also try to take into account how they may take it. And this is just a part of, quote unquote, doing the work of becoming aware of how you sound when you communicate. Because in all actuality, what our words carry weight. We say that, especially if your love language is words of affirmation, which mine is. I'm really picking up on how you're saying things to me. Like how you talk to me matters. I don't care if it's customer service, if it's my children, if it's out in public, how you talk to me matters. I can handle what you're saying. I understand it intellectually, but how you say it to me impacts my heart. And so I have to be upfront. And I'm always like, listen, I'm tone sensitive. So the way you say things to me matter. And one of the phrases that God gave me to help me through that during conflict or times of challenges, I can't hear you through that tone. Do you think that you could explain it to me so that I can really try to understand what you're saying? When you ask for understanding, the tone changes every single time. I'm just trying to understand. And I'm having a hard time because I'm getting lost in the tone. It's the ownership. Because here's what happens with tone, just so I can make it make sense even more. With children, your tone sounds like you're teaching, right? Didn't I tell you this is the way it's supposed to? So let's sit down, right? And let's figure these things out. Well, how did I tell you to do it the last time? Okay, so what did you see how the tone is very teaching, like it has like a stern, like, didn't I? What are we gonna? Let's figure this out. Let's see how we can get it done. It's very assertive. When we're talking to our therapist, it's informing. I just wanted to let you know, like, this is what I'm going through, and I don't really understand how. And so this is what I'm also dealing with. And because of that, I'm dealing with this. And I don't really see how the two are connected. And they said that I show up this way. You see the difference? And then with your spouse, it should sound like you're trying to understand one another. Well, I don't. So how did that make you feel? So when I did that, that made you feel, okay. So what can I do differently? Because that's not really what I'm trying to say. Hear the differences between the three? That's why tone matters. A lot of the times we're getting into conflict, not because of what they said, because we can handle what they said. What we can't handle is how they said it. That's when we start attacking character. You're so disrespectful. You and your mouth. Here you go again. It becomes dismissive. It becomes devaluing. And it's not actually because of what they said. It's because of how they said it. And the same thing happens as we position ourselves as wives. What we say is what we're saying, but how we say it determines the outcome of what we asked for. We want to submit, but we don't want to be like, and you got to do, and you got to. It's the same way when we nag our children. Didn't I tell you? Didn't you? Don't you gotta? You need to. And they're just kind of in one ear and out the other. And so this part of the journey, as I was learning about having this voice confidence, was really believing in my feminine authority. Is like what I have to say can either anger him, it could excite him, it could encourage him, it could motivate him. And I control that just through my tone. I control it just through my tone. That's not manipulation. That's self-awareness and being able to read the room to know when to say what and then how to say it. It's not that you're not going to have conflict. It's how you navigate through the conflict. And conflicts only worsen when we're dealing with things like semantics, how they said it. How they said it. That's how conversations go left a lot of the time. And so when we work on that, we can shift the atmosphere. We can shift the environment. We can shift the conflict altogether. Like now it's just a disagreement. We're not seeing eye to eye. So we're going to do the work to get an understanding. Isn't that what the Bible says? And all you're getting, get an understanding. And what's so dope about that passage is that you're constantly getting an understanding. Like it's not something that said like, and get an understanding. It doesn't stop. You're constantly trying to get an understanding. So as soon as you think you understood something, guess what you got to go get? More understanding. And so when you operate that within your heart posture, things like respect is not an issue. Things like honor is not an issue. Things like supporting and edifying is not an issue. Things like operating as a COO and your godly role is not impacted, right? So we got one more. I'm glad y'all are sticking with me. One more. Actually, two more. So the next one is emotional safety, which is a safe place to land. I was not a safe person. I just wasn't. And what that looked like was I had to learn not to weaponize any statements that they said or to exploit their vulnerability. We always want our husbands to come to us. We want them to feel like they can count on us for anything. But then things get heated and now we're spewing all of these things that they've said. And we're wondering why. We're wondering why. I couldn't be mad that at points throughout the two individual marriages that there was a common theme that at moments they just didn't feel emotionally safe with me. They didn't feel like they could open up to me. They didn't feel like they could tell me the truth. My kids have said that to me. I just thought you were going to get mad, so I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to deal with your That's what they were saying. I did not want to have to deal with whatever was going to come out of your mouth because it's so unpredictable. 1 minute you're mad, 1 minute it's fine, 1 minute it's this, and then I get into trouble again and you bringing it up. That's unsafe. Or you making fun of it, or you making light of it. Imagine, you know how that feels for you if somebody does that. You tell somebody something in confidence that you're struggling with this, or you need help with this, and they kind of just make light of it and dismiss it. I had to learn how to become an emotionally safe person. First for myself. I wasn't even emotionally safe with myself. All the negative self-talk, the doubt, the fears, the past trauma, the negative narratives that I started to tell myself or believe about what people, because of whatever they were saying when we would get into arguments and comments they would make. I had to learn to become safe with myself. I had to affirm myself every single day. I had to believe that this is how God designed me. I had to believe that I'm still a work in progress. I had to believe that I deserve grace and space. I had to believe differently about me so that if anything came up against my character, I wasn't going to return it. I'm not about matching energy. You can keep yours. I got my own, thanks. My energy enough is exhausting for me. I certainly don't want to match yours. I promise you, you can keep it. You can keep it. I'm not matching energy. I'll give you what I have. And you can take it or leave it. That's really what it is. And the energy that I choose to have is one that creates a safe place for him to land. a safe place for him to be vulnerable. A good book to read is Safe People. I can't remember the author, but the book is called Safe People. I mean, it's a popular book, but that talks about being a safe person. And that's where you can find how, like, that was where I first realized I wasn't a safe person. And then it gives you tips and tools and techniques on how to become a safe person. We think we are because we're nice, because we're kind, because we're gentle. And that's cute, but it's not safe. It's not always safe. So like really look into it, because when a man is coming to you, like when we hear in these social media streets, like, oh, I just, I want peace. I want her to be my peace. We don't really break apart what that actually looks like and what that actually means for him. And for every man, the specifics are going to be different. But I can promise you this. If he knows that he can trust his heart with you, like the ugly parts of his heart, not just the good things, not just that he balling, he got this and he got that and he got this. I mean, the parts that he struggled with. If you could be the one person that he can go to, which is something that all wives desire, whether we say it out loud or not. It starts with you first becoming a safe person before he even enters the picture. That's how he already knows, like, yeah, I can rock with you. I can vibe with you. All right. So the next one is embracing accountability and taking ownership. This was a biggie. So this means taking responsibility for your actions and choices. That this is for me personally, that allowed me to grow and learn from my mistakes. It wasn't about placing blame or, blame shifting and all those things, but understanding my part in the situation and committing to changing it. This is being able to say the hard things that are ugly, that are nasty, that make you look not so good, and being transparent and honest about it. It's being able to say out loud, without shame, without guilt, without fear of retribution or judgment. I didn't even realize how broken I was after my first marriage, that it took me the 3 years that I was single, plus the first 5 years of my marriage, to realize, just to realize it. Just to realize it. Was being called out for it and was fighting against it simply because I didn't understand. So I was always in a position of looking like she don't know how to take responsibility. She don't know how to take ownership for where she is. And it was absolutely correct. It wasn't until just a few months ago that realization came. Like, I lived in that. And when I look back, I'm like, dang, I didn't even really start acknowledging the level of being unhealed I was and broken until year 5 of the next marriage. How unfair is that to the person I was married to? But I have to take ownership of that, because the only way, I remember seeing a post where a mom was saying, I just desire to be a better mom and heal from the things that I never speak of. And it was shared thousands of times. And so I finally went under the comment and I was like, yeah, you actually have to say the things. You actually have to say the things. There's no way for me to ask for forgiveness, to reconcile, to do any of those things if I'm not first willing to hold myself accountable and take ownership. 2 totally different things. You need to be able to get yourself to a heart posture that says, dag, I messed up. I don't know right now how I'm going to fix it, but I can tell you that I want to fix it. And I can see how it's impacted you. I couldn't before, but I can see it now. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that one, I couldn't see it until I could see it. And two, that you had to deal with everything as a result. Everything that you were picking up on that I was fighting you against, and because I didn't know it. Those are the apologies. Those are the apologies that create change, that shift behaviors. I promise you. And so then the last one is prioritizing. And these aren't in any particular order. It's just the 8 things that I learned. And so this last one is prioritizing self-care and soul care. Right? And guess what? Guess what, ladies? It's your responsibility to maintain your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual health. It's not his. He can cover you while you do it. But it's your responsibility to bring yourself as a whole entire person. Right? What they say, marriage is not 50-50, it's 100-100. So if you're only showing up 80% and he's showing up 100, you're at a deficit. Y'all know me. I kind of have to say it how it is. I feel like that's where we get lost in the sauce because we want to sugarcoat it and want to make people feel good. I'm just saying. I'll hurt your feelings a little bit, but I'll still love you. I'll still be your friend. I'll still check the yes box. I'm just saying. When you're whole and healthy, you can show up as the best version of yourself in your marriage. That wasn't my story. If I'm honest, I probably showed up at a deficit because I was acting out of my trauma. I was acting out of my pain. I was showing up as a woman who was insecure, didn't know who she was, didn't have core values, didn't have boundaries, didn't know how to communicate, believed that I wasn't broken, wasn't wounded, that nothing was really impacting me, that I wasn't angry, that I wasn't resentful for some of the things that had happened to me. That's how I showed up in both. There's no accurate percentage that's above 100 that would categorize where I was. I was dealing with mom guilt. I was dealing with mom shame. I was dealing with rejection. I was dealing with abandonment. I was dealing with violations. I was dealing with being dominated, feeling violated, feeling exploited, feeling manipulated. There are 14 main emotional wounds that I help walk women through. When I first started this work, I think I was showing up with at least 9 of them above 50% of the time. That means think about your day. You have a 24-hour day. We all have a percentage of our emotional wounds that show up throughout our day for a certain number of hours. That means we're responding out of that. We're framing the narratives out of those wounds. And so if you have 24 hours in a day and you're at a 50% dealing with rejection, like that's how much rejection impacts your life. That means 12 hours of your day, you're looking through the lens of being rejected. It doesn't matter if it's your spouse, family, children, at work, you're looking through the lens. That's why it's important to know what type of emotional wounds you deal with and how and what percentage you deal with them at. If you deal with being violated at 75% because of things that have happened to you in your your past, you were sexually abused, molested, raped, sex trafficked. You were in domestic violence and abusive relationships, be it physical, emotional, verbal, spiritual, financial, any of those types of abuses. That means that you're going to show up 75% of the time looking through the lens of someone who's been violated. How do you then see opportunity for health? How do you then see the opportunity to move forward in a positive direction? You can't, because your lens is stuck in violation. I do this exercise all the time. This is what it looks like. If I can, right there. Now you can still see me moving. You can still see my hands going. You can hear what I'm saying, but I'm looking through the lens of rejection. I'm looking at men through the lens of abandonment. I'm looking at the world through the lens of violation. I'm looking at the lens through the world. I'm looking at the world through the lens of this and that and whatever else that I experienced. And then something happens when you heal. You're like, oh, Okay, I can see clearly now. The trauma is gone. Amen, somebody? Amen, somebody. Listen, let me know what your biggest takeaway was in the chat, because we have been chit-chatting and talking, and I have been moving, and I have been saying, I've been looking at the comments, and they have just been kind of blowing up. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join me. I don't know, my brother's still on here, but hey, brother. Hey, Carmen. Hey, sister. My sister, my brother's wife, E is on. Hey, sister. Hey, Nikki and Carmen and Jenny and Candace. Listen, thank you guys so much. And Sonia, thank you so much. Hey, Mama Emma. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. Even if you come back and you decide you want to just put one in the chat, or if you want to inbox me, please feel free to do that. I'm always open to answering any questions. And listen, there's a few things that I say, but one thing that I'm saying is people are going to judge you anyway. So they might as well judge you on your truth. It's the reason why I'm so vulnerable. It's the reason why I'm so transparent, because I know if I sign my own permission slip to be this way, it helps free another woman and what she was thinking. No, sis, you're not crazy. No, sis, you're not alone. Yes, you can actually come on the other side. Yes, there is something on the other side for you better than what you have. No, you don't always have to feel this way. And no, you don't always have to feel this way and be alone. You just don't. And so, like I said, people are going to judge you. I'm going to be open and transparent regardless of who's offended by it, because I know what's on the other side of it. I know exactly what's on the other side of it. Someone's healing is on the other side of it. Now, I'm not out here in these streets being all kinds of messy and doing all the things. I'm not out here to avenge myself for anything I've felt or experienced because of my past marriages or just some of the challenges. No, these are all the things that I've learned as a result. And there's some of the ugliest things that I've learned about myself. But I know if I share them, then the truth will set somebody else free too, just like it did me. Amen. I'm glad y'all tuned in. So we have a takeaway here that just says, my takeaway is it's not his responsibility to make sure that you are spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally whole, that he can support you while you go through it. Amen. That's my job. With or without him, that's my job. It was my job before I met him. So why does it transition because now I'm married to you? How does that work? Like the Bible even says, we train up a child so that they can go. Like our children aren't even ours. They're ours for a short amount of time. And we have an actual mission to teach them and train them so that they can go. Because baby, when my kids get to the adulting on their own, I'm here for support. Here's the phone number that you need to call and make that appointment. Okay? I know my position. I know what role I play. It's the same for our husbands. We put things on their plate that they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I know he talked about provision, but I don't think I'm responsible for your healing. I'm responsible to you, but for your healing, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. Here's another one. I need to cultivate the rhythm of being a COO. Step into that role, sis. Read all the things that she does in Proverbs. Look at how resourceful she becomes. Like, read it from a lens of a job description. The level of authority that you have in your home, bruh. This is why they call the marriage a partnership. When you look at any business operations, the CEO has to make certain decisions, but those decisions are never made without him consulting the COO, the one who has the ear to the ground, the one who knows exactly what's going on, the one who knows how to navigate this. And, this child needs this. And could you just go in and talk to them about this, this, and this? I think I tried, but I feel like it would be better coming from you. Partnership. You both push the vision forward. You just do it from different angles. I know I get on my kids' last nerve, all the things I have going on in the house. But I promise you, when you leave the house, you'll know exactly how to operate in your position. I'm not teaching my daughter to be masculine just because there's no husband in the house. There's no father figure in the house. We serve a good God. His presence is here. And so it's the equivalent of as if you were going to overstep God. Like that's the conviction. Not stepping into the COO role as the woman in the house is the equivalent of overstepping God. Never mind your husband. It's the equivalent of overstepping God. And so when you understand it from that perspective, game changer. Submission automatically comes into play and you learn how to do it because now you're truly submitting everything to God. Not a surrendering, which is different, a submitting to, and then waiting to hear from God. What do you say? We all want to say that to God. God, what do you say? Your will, not mine. But when we get a husband, we're like, well, I don't know about your will. And if you know that your husband is submitted to God too, ma'am, you out of alignment. You are out of alignment. My takeaway is your triggers are responses from past trauma, and it's so important for you to heal so you have a better lens to see things clearly. You are responsible for your own healing, not your partner. This is absolutely true. That's why I love that analogy when I'm able to put that tape over the screen, because we think we're showing up a certain way. I've done the work, but I still got to keep working. Because there's going to be certain nuances that enter the picture if I start dating again. I'm not dating the person that I was once married to. I'm dating a whole nother person who has their own past, who has their own traumas, who has their own triggers, who has their own coping mechanisms. That's why it's okay, I think, to have those hard conversations in the dating phase. Because you're going to marry it. So we can't be asking for God to show us all these things. Listen, let me say it like this. As I was about to exit the marriage, and I was confident enough to stand on my decision that I wasn't going to backtrack, that I wasn't going to waver in my decision. There was something that God did that I understand it differently now today than when he actually was walking me through this. There was a podcast that I was listening to. He said, I want you to go and I want you to listen to him. And as you listen to every podcast, I want you to write down characteristics about him that you notice, characteristics that you like, characteristics that you would desire in a spouse. And so I'm like, God, I'm still married. Like, why would you ask me to do that? He's like, just do it. And I'm going to show you why I'm asking you to do this. So I listened, like I binge listened to the podcast. I'm writing down all the characteristics that I see, that I hear, that I desire to have in a marriage, that I desire to have in the man that I'm with. And so I write them down. And God says, I just want you to pray over these things. And I'm like, okay. So I start praying over these things, and I still continue to pray over these things. So now, fast forward about 8 months, the divorce is now final. And God says, remember the things that I asked you to pray about? Remember the things, the characteristics that I had you write down? He said, those are my desires for who I desire you to be with. Like, I want them to have those types of characteristics. And what I've done was I've aligned my desires with yours. Because when you wrote them down, you believed that it was possible for you to have them. And now you know that in order to have those, you need to do the work. You need to change. You need to show up as the woman who matches that man. Now, he could remarry me and my ex for all I know. What I'm saying is, I had to level up to the characteristics of what I desired. I can't expect a man to bring to the table healing and I'm unhealed. I can't. He showed exactly what it was. And he said, yeah, well, you got to match that. So let's get to work. Let's start doing the work. And this is exactly why I can stand here today and say I am a better wife today than I was in the 2 marriages that I was in. And it sounds completely messed up and weird and awkward, but it's the truth. We grow through these things when you're willing to heal through them. And this is why I'll always continue to do the work. This is why I'll always praise God. This is why I'm always grateful for his provision, because I know it didn't have to be this way. And as uncomfortable at times it is to be this vulnerable, to be this transparent, to know that I'm putting it out here on a public platform, I know that God's provision and his protection comes with it. If it's going to free another woman to step into her feminine authority and truly show up as a warrior woman who knows how to battle for her marriage, who knows how to battle for her children, who knows how to battle for herself, who knows how to intercede for her friends and family, who knows how to operate in her gifts, her talents, her abilities. I know what it's like to have been there, and I'm so grateful for where I am now. Because I understand now, just as this picture says behind me, one day she decided to heal and her legacy changed forever. That's it. That's why I do it. Like, there are generations after me that are going to be impacted by this. One day, one of my children's are going to be like, your great grandmother used to, woo, she was a preacher woman. You see what I'm saying? Like, it just changes now. Instead of she was an angry woman. That's my story. My grandmother was an angry woman. And now I can transform that to, my grandmother was a preacher woman, child. She prayed for anybody in the store. Levi was getting his hair cut, and I started praying for the barber because he was going back to college. He was a college student. And so I prayed for him, and Levi was like, oh, so this is what we're doing today. I'm glad you know your mama. Okay? I'm glad you know your mama. It is what it is. But listen, it has been amazing to spend this time with you. We did go over just a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I touched on the takeaways and really just spoke to them. And so, yeah, hang out with me. You know, we're here Wednesdays at 7 p.m. There's going to be new things that are coming out as a result of what God has given me for warrior womanhood. I'm here to unlock lives and, and unlock legacies and change them and shift them in ways you probably couldn't even have fathomed, just because we are here to have these real and, raw and, conversations. So thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back next Wednesday. I'll just be talking about what warrior womanhood is for those who may not know, who may not really have a clear understanding of why I do what I do and who I do it for. And so I want to come back and just talk about that because it's been 1.5 years since I've been on. And so I want to recircle that. And then we're going to get right into it, right? We're going to get right into it. September, we always talk about fear and what it looks like to fight fear. Then we get into the value of your voice, the value of your vision, and being in the valley. Like the value of being in the valley. People discount the valley, child. And I tell you, there's so much that you can learn about being in the valley and hitting them low points. Because when you're low, the only way is up. But there's so much that you can learn and take up with you. So thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to really come back full-fledged and really get back into the rhythm of doing these things. If this has blessed you, if this live has blessed you in any way, tag a sister friend, share it. Do the things that they ask you to do. Follow Warrior Womanhood so you can stay up to date. We're on YouTube at Warrior Womanhood TV. We're on Instagram at Warrior_Womanhood. We updated that name so that everything is consistent across the board. And, we have a new book coming out by the end of the year called Healing the Soul of a Black Woman. It's a guide to generational health, emotional wellness, and soul care. I'm really excited about that. And so, yeah, it's time for us to, shift that legacy. We keep talking about, oh, I want to heal and I want to do the work. Well, now I'm gonna hold you to it. So, I'm signing off as your sister in soul care. I love y'all. Y'all can't do nothing about that. It is what it is. Hey, girl. And so I will see you all next week at 7 p.m. And thank you so much for supporting and just engaging and sharing what you took away from this. So you all have a very blessed evening, and I will see you all next Wednesday at 7 p.m. All right, y'all. Take care. Bye.